Hi guys, my name is Kristen and this is my channel, Kristen is Fully Booked. Welcome back to those of you who have been here before and welcome to those who are joining for the first time. Today I'm going to be doing a mid-month wrap-up. I essentially, through the February TBR that I created, filmed, edited for hours, shared with the world, out the window, and have just been reading romance books this month. Not related to Valentine's Day at all, but here we are. I have read 11 books so far this month, 3 of which are fantasy romance and the rest are all contemporary romance. Since I'm going to be talking about romance books now and perhaps in the future, I'm going to introduce my spiciness scale. 1 hot pepper is max 1 or 2 scenes with limited detail. 2 is more perhaps scenes with kind of more specific details. And 3, there are quite descriptive, plentiful scenes of physical intimacy where that plays a much more significant role in the plot. So we will get started with the first book that I read this month, which was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, a writing duo. Actually, the majority of the books that I read are by the writing duo Christina Lauren, and this is simply because I read one, I enjoyed it, I was curious to see what else they had out there, and it just kind of kept going with that, where I sort of knew what to expect out of their books and just kind of kept going along that vein. I'll say all of the Christina Lauren books are like 1 hot pepper on the spiciness scale. The Unhoneymooners follows Olive and Ethan, who are the sister and brother of a bride and groom. Everyone at the wedding gets violently ill from a seafood buffet, except for Olive and Ethan, and they are then forced to take their siblings' honeymoon in Hawaii because it was a all-inclusive honeymoon that the bride won and it can't be wasted. Despite the fact that Olive and Ethan hate each other, they have to pretend to be hopelessly in love newlyweds. This is a hate-to-love romance, of course. I did really enjoy this book. Obviously, it made me pick up another book by this author duo. I really like confession moments in romantic plots or subplots where the man sort of shares his feelings. I think that those can be done really well, and I thought that this one was. I really enjoyed watching these two pretend to be into each other and have that progress and develop, and overall I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was Twice in a Blue Moon. This follows Tate and Sam. It is a second chance at love. Tate and Sam meet in London on vacation when they are like 18 and 21, I believe. They have a whirlwind 10-day romance where they fall in love. Something pretty horrible happens, and they don't see each other again until they run into each other on the set of a movie, where I actually did not love this one. I felt like all of the falling in love moments of the book, which I really enjoyed that component of like a romance plot, took place when they were really young over a period of 10 days. And you don't really get to see them re-falling in love. So even though they only have known each other for like 10 days, 15 years ago, they still want to be together. I don't know. It just didn't feel like, I don't feel like there was enough work put into making them fall in love with each other again. And then the conflict sort of why they aren't, or why they stopped being together all that time ago, is quite significant, and I didn't really like the way that it was wrapped up as quickly as it was. Next up, I read Love in Other Words, which was so cute. I really liked this one. It is a second chance at love, but also a friends to lovers romance. It follows Macy and Elliot, who are best friends from the age of 13 to 18. They start dating towards the end of that. Something, of course, happens, and they don't see each other for 11 years when they spontaneously run into each other in a coffee shop. This follows a now and then timeline, so we get to see them becoming best friends and this like really adorable, amazing relationship when they're young, and now when they are meeting again after having not seen each other for all of these years, had really like heartbreaking, emotional, sad moments, but I liked that you got to see them sort of reestablishing a relationship in the now timeline. The intensity sort of their relationship when they were young and how it fell apart has significantly impacted their relationships in the interim, and you get to see that, like how it's affected their life and their romances in between. I thought that the now and then component was done to great effect and made me feel very emotionally connected and invested in the book and the relationship. Next up was my favorite half night stand, also by Christina Lauren. These are I'll tell you when it's not Christina Lauren. This follows Millie and Reed. It is a friends to lovers romance. There are essentially these 4 guys and girl who have this like really great friend group, and Millie, who's the only girl in this group, ends up hooking up with Reed one night after she drinks too much. They decide that they just want to be best friends. They don't want to ruin their relationship. And around this time, the friend group decides that they are going to try online dating. Millie's a little bit embarrassed, and she uses not her first name for her account, nor does she use a photo that shows her face. She gets matched up with Reed, the guy that she slept with, and she thinks that he is going to realize who she is really quickly, and he does not. I really like friends to lovers romances because the characters involved have a really deep established connection already. This one in particular I enjoyed because Millie and Reed do have an amazing friendship, but Millie has had some things in her life happen that have made her less able to share her deep emotions and thoughts, and it explains why she is able to connect at a different level with Reed virtually and less so in person. Next up was Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. This is also a friends to lovers romance. They decide to set each other up with other people but go on blind double dates. So the book is essentially them going on a series of horrible blind double dates when it's quite obvious to everyone involved that it's really Josh and Hazel who should be on the date. The way that the synopsis read makes you think that this book is going to be more of a friends with benefits, pretending to not be into each other or denying the fact that they're into each other, and that's not actually the vibe. It's more that they don't necessarily realize that they are into each other. They have reasons for why they aren't pursuing things further. I thought it was really cute. I feel like there was actually almost no conflict in this book. Like there was nothing crazy or dramatic to affect the relationship, and it was more just about them each individually getting to a place where they were okay being upfront with their feelings. Then I read Roomies, which is a fake dating or essentially fake marriage romance setup. Holland is kind of obsessed with this subway busker. She goes out of her way several times a week to take a subway that she does not need in order to hear Calvin play. Circumstances align that they sort of finally meet, and Holland is in a place within her work and her family that she's able to get Calvin an audition to be in a Broadway play, or like play his guitar in a Broadway play. And it turns out that Calvin is Irish and has been living in New York illegally. Holland then winds up marrying Calvin for him to get a green card so that he can stay in the States and take this job. I will say that her having been really into him for like 6 months before and going out of her way to see him several times a week at the subway is a little bit creepy to me. It was a little bit stalkerish. It is definitely addressed. Finally, the last Christina Lauren book was the Honey Don't List. This follows Carrie and James, who are the assistants to a husband and wife TV home improvement duo. While the world and the public thinks that the home improvement are deeply in love and have this perfect marriage, it's actually falling apart and is quite toxic. The pair has even written a book on marriage and are going on a book tour to promote their book on marriage. It is then the assistant's job, Carrie and James, to keep them together and to keep the press from finding out what's really going on. It is sort of a hate to love romance, I guess, although I feel like it's strong in neither the hate nor love components. They sort of hate each other, I guess, or like they just don't really like each other. James really looks down on Carrie at the beginning. You get to see both Carrie and James's perspectives in this book, and while I really enjoyed seeing James overcome his prejudices to Carrie and realizing how strong and capable she really is, I don't feel like there was enough that took place between the two of them in a timeline that made sense to get them from not really liking each other to sort of making the emotional declarations that they do. Overall, I would say that this one was just okay. The next book that I read was Say You Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker. This follows Piper and Kyle and is a second chance at a love romance. It does have a now and then back and forth timeline. We see Piper and Kyle meeting at summer camp when they are 16 and 17 as camp counselors. They have a intense summer romance. They agree to continue seeing each other at the end of the summer, and then Kyle doesn't respond to any of her calls, emails, and in fact disconnects his phone and email that she has. The now timeline is 13 years later. Piper is a super successful executive, and she finds out that the brand new security guard in the building that her family company not only owns but works out of is none other than Kyle. I will say that the one thing about teenage romance, or like the back and forth timeline when it's a second chance at love and they were teenagers, that I don't love is that sometimes it feels like all of the intimacy scenes that are depicted in the book or talked about in the book are from when they were teenagers. And so then you feel like the only intimacy that you're seeing, or like sexual intimacy that you're seeing, is when they are 16 and 17-year-olds. And like, that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. You know? I feel like that's where these contemporary second chance at romances are losing me, is that all of the establishment of the relationship and love is done when they are teenagers, and then they have them not see each other for a significant period of time, like a decade plus minimum. And the authors, I don't feel like are, at least in the ones that I've read, are not putting in enough work to reestablish a connection between them in the later years. I always thought that I really liked second chance at love romances, but I feel like what I really love is like the Jane Austen's Persuasion version of second chance at love. What is great about Persuasion is that you get to see them falling back in love. And I feel like I was missing that in Say You Still Love Me, Twice in a Blue Moon, and Love in Other Words, to be honest. The one thing that I will say about Piper is that she is maybe a better person than I am. In the sense that when she sees Kyle after all these years, after he like ghosted her before ghosting was a thing, she is quite convinced that she wants to like see him and talk to him and be with him. And even though he's sort of being like, no, let's just say hi, let's not take this further, let's just leave things as they are. Like, he's quite insistent on that, and she is quite, she really tries to get things going again. And I feel like if that had happened to me, I would be a lot more bitter, and I would do the cold shoulder. Like, I would be cold shouldering Kyle in this situation, for sure. So maybe Piper is just a better, more forgiving person than I am, or she's just really in love with Kyle, which I think is what we're supposed to think. I just kept being like, perfect, now is the time that she's gonna realize, like, F this guy and cold shoulder him, and she doesn't. She chases him down the next day and tries again. I didn't get it, but love, I guess, right? After that book, I was sort of tired of the contemporary setting, and I switched over to some fantasy romance books, the first of which was The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. Hi guys, editing Christina here. I feel like it sounds like I said Daniel L. Jensen, and the author's name is Danielle L. Jensen. This is a hate-love political marriage setup following Laura and Aaron. Laura, from the age of 5 to 20, has been trained along with 11 of her other half-sisters to be a spy and assassin getting ready for this potential political marriage. Laura is not technically picked, but Laura is the one that marries King now Aaron, with the ultimate goal of infiltrating the country from the inside and taking it down. This book was not nearly as spicy as I thought it was going to be. I had kept seeing it in the past on the same lists as like From Blood and Ash, which is fairly spicy. Whereas this, I would say, was like probably just a 1 on the spicy scale. Laura reminded me a little bit of Celaena Sardothien in this book from the Throne of Glass series, because in this first book, because yes, I obviously read the second book, she sort of in this book is sort of only operating as a spy and not an assassin. So it's sort of like how Celaena always would walk into a room and be like, I could take down all of these people really, really quickly, but like she never actually does anything. Same vibes with Laura. Because she is supposed to kind of keep her training secret, she only is operating in the capacity of a spy and she has to pretend that she has no weapons experience. So she'll be in situations where like someone will like grab her or hold her, or she'll walk into a room maybe, and you'll get that inner dialogue of being like, oh, I could take this person down so quickly, but she doesn't. So it had sort of Celaena vibes there. In the second book, The Traitor Queen, we get to see Laura being much more assassin, militant, weapons, badass. And I really enjoyed that. She is very skilled. One note on the title, I really dislike when a sequel in a series has the potential to spoil parts of the first book. If that makes sense, it kind of makes me think of the Folk of the Air series with the Cruel Prince, the Wicked King, and then the Queen of Nothing. Like if you were looking up that series, you would see the third book and be like, wait a second. Obviously something takes place before the end of the second book. And I feel similarly with the title, The Traitor Queen, in this one, but anyway, it's just a little bit of a pet peeve. This book is much more political, scheming. We also get to see some of Laura's sisters in this book, which was kind of fun. There was an additional couple in the second book that kept making me think that I was missing a companion novel, or it felt like I was missing information that seemed relevant to this other couple in the book. Turns out the third and fourth book in the series, which are currently untitled and with no publication dates, are actually going to follow this new couple instead of Laura and Aaron. And the third book is even going to overlap in time frame with the second book. Finally, the last book that I've read is A Promise of Fire by Amanda Boucher. This is also a fantasy romance book that follows Kat and Griffin, and it is definitely a hate-to-love romance. Kat is a magical person with some kind of secret magical skills and a secret identity. Griffin, on the other hand, is a warlord in this country who has recently overthrown the magical royal family and placed his non-magical sister, he's not magical either, on the throne. The world in this book is very Greek gods inspired. There are sort of magical people and non-magical people. The magical people are called Magoi, and then I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. And then the non-magical people are called hoi polloi, which I just love. Like every time I had to read it, I laughed a little bit. I thought it was really funny. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but hoi polloi? No? Hoi polloi? I love it. I think it's hilarious. One of Kat's powers makes her very coveted by royals. And Griffin discovers not who she is, but what she is. And he kidnaps her. I mean, it's quite clear that there's sort of like some sexual tension and romantic interest between Kat and Griffin pretty early on. But Kat is very much so like, despite what's, what I'm feeling, no, this cannot happen. I cannot be with someone who has kidnapped me, like who's okay with that. And Griffin kind of keeps just being like, oh, I'll wear you down. I'm gonna keep trying. You'll see. We'll be together. You'll see. And I don't like that. I just get really angry when I see the kidnapping setup because, and I know that it works for some people and that's like no judgment. It just doesn't always work for me. But I get angry when I see it because I know that at some point there's going to be situations or events that the author is going to make me want these people to be together. And I'm angry that the author is going to do that to me when I, like Kat, know that this is not a relationship that I should want those people to be in. I liked the fantasy plot in this book way more than I liked the romance. I thought it was really fun. I liked that the gods were not super involved, but very clearly played a role. And I liked the magic with sort of like the different talents that Kat has and the things that she does with those. I am really interested in the political setup, so that royal family is in this setting where they are non-magical people who are usually a little bit more downtrodden, and they have risen up and ousted the magical royal family, and now it's like there's 3 kingdoms and they're the only ones ruled by non-magical people. And I'm going to continue reading the next book for the plot alone. On a spicy scale, I would say this book is probably a 2, just because while there are not that many scenes, they are maybe a little bit more descriptive. That is everything that I've read so far in the month of February. I am very cognizant of the fact that these were all heterosexual relationships. There actually wasn't a ton of diversity either. Turns out Christina Lauren maybe just don't write that. And so if I continue to read romance throughout the month, or throughout the rest of the month, I am definitely going to look a little bit broader for new authors and different, more diverse relationships and more representative relationships, which I would like to do. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you get notifications for when I post up new videos. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.